welcome to RVATECH's Women in Women in Tech Wednesday. I'm Victoria, and I'll be moderating today's session. We are joined by three amazing young women, Jemesia, Reyna, and Ellie. All these ladies are first robotics alumni and are now doing amazing things in their community to promote STEM and just to promote society in a positive direction. I'm going to throw it over to them to introduce themselves for now, starting with Jemesia.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jemesia Jefferson. I am an alumni for the 2998 biking bots from Thomas Jefferson High School in Richmond, Virginia. I'm a little bit older than the rest of these guys, but because I'm a senior at Roosevelt Institute of Technology in Terre Haute, Indiana. That's kind of like the basis of me.
Ellie?
Hi, I'm Ellie. I'm the team captain and founder of FTC Team 12838 Kinetic Storm. I'm the youngest one here. I'm 16. I'll graduate with my associate's degree in about like 3 weeks. I'm going to go to VCU in the fall to study pre-medicine. That's a little bit about me.
And Reyna?
Hi, I'm Reyna. I am a current senior at South River High School, and I am our student CEO of the Powerhawks Robotics Team 1111. So as I said, I go to South River High School, and in the fall, I'll be going to Duke University to study mechanical engineering.
You all are such amazing individuals. And if we could just go through and if you could give a little bit of what you're doing to promote just STEM and just even yourself in your society in your everyday life. Jemesia?
Okay, so obviously I'm a civil engineer, so that's tech in itself. But within that, I try to be a part of a number of different organizations. So one of them is National Society of Black Engineers, and that's just promoting STEM to basically all minorities. Another one is Engineers Without Borders. That one is more closer to my major. In Engineers Without Borders, I'm able to work on real-world engineering projects. And for example, when I was a freshman, I went to Ghana to help build a 12-stall latrine, and I actually got to help build the latrine. Like, I went through the design process, and so by doing that, I've immersed myself in STEM, but also sharing that information with people around me and encouraging other people that I go to school with and that I know in general to just join like Engineers Without Borders and do STEM. It's my way that I try to promote STEM.
I think that's really cool. Working with Engineers Without Borders, what else have you been able to do? What other projects have you been a part of?
So in Engineers Without Borders, they're 5-year projects. So the very first one, when I was a freshman, that was our last year. And so currently we're working in Charbonneau, Ecuador to do a water distribution project. We're on year 2. And so thus far we've traveled and kind of collected data. And so this spring actually was the time where we just started using information to actually nail out the distribution system. But COVID-19 has kind of had us at a break. So we'll get back to that. Well, they'll get back to that in the fall. I'll be graduating by then. But hopefully I'll be able to join the Professional Engineers Without Borders chapter.
That's really cool. Ellie, what about you?
Okay, so I actually started the robotics program at my school, which was the first FTC team in my whole region. And since then, I've helped to create 8 more teams in my area. For some of the stuff that I've done with the community, we've kind of saturated our town with all things robotics. We were planning to have a STEM fair this spring, but that got canceled because of COVID. But some other stuff we've done, like we try to be really involved with our local community. We go to the farmers market, we go to the ball games, we just bring our robots everywhere. We march in the parades and stuff like that. But we've gone to Congress and we have advocated for STEM funding. We've talked with our state representatives to try to do more stuff with that. We've built prosthetics and things for children whose parents can't afford to have them. And we mentor teams in other countries, stuff like that. But for me, how being a part of a first team has affected me is that I gained a lot of valuable skills. I gained interview skills, public speaking skills. I come from a rural county. We don't have a lot of opportunities here. Any engineering classes, they're barred off. Only like certain people are allowed to take them. So being a part of a robotics team helped me get those skills, the programming, the building, the engineering notebook. Those are all skills that I wouldn't have ever learned if I hadn't have started the team. And they're just not in my area at all. And now that's something that I've started that's going to continue for a long time after I'm gone.
That's really cool. What about you, Reyna?
So through robotics, our team is very passionate about community service, and it's created a lot of opportunities for me to actually get involved with my community. So one of the things that I did personally on my team is I started a First for Everyone Everywhere chapter. And so I got a group of kids on my team together, and we partnered with a team actually based out of Tel Aviv, Israel. And we worked with them to develop original modified curriculum based off their the first FLO Junior lesson plans. And we went to a special education school in my community and actually taught them how to build Lego robots. And we worked one-on-one with them for, I think it was about 14 weeks throughout the year. And just they came up with some amazing products. And that was one of the most fulfilling community service projects that we've done. This past year, we've also started a Lend a Limb chapter. We worked with Enable Prosthetics, which I think Ellie, your team works with them too. So we actually were able to use the 3D printing resources that we have at our school and in our shop through robotics and print a 3D printed prosthetic for a child in our area. And now the robotics team has just loved this project, and they're all really passionate about it. So they're working on designing custom prosthetics to further deliver them throughout our community.
That's a really cool experience and thing that you can be a part of. And so First Robotics, we keep talking about it, and it's definitely something that we all have in common. But for those of the people who are listening and who are with us today, they might not know anything about First Robotics. So what can you tell us about it from your experience and just what it is in general to somebody who knows nothing about robotics? Because it's crazy. I know it's a giant sporting event for the mind in a way, but I mean, it's our lives for those however many months that we're in the robotic season, and then it's not just that. So, anyone?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about FIRST. So FIRST has been my life for the past 4 years. I got involved my freshman year of high school, and it stands for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology. That's the acronym FIRST there. But it's exactly what Victoria said. It's like a big sporting event, but with robots. So they have 4 different levels from elementary school to high school. So I'm on an FRC team. That's the high school level team. And they just get a group of passionate kids together for a certain amount of time in our year. I know for our FRC, we have 6 weeks to build our one robot. And then we go off at the beginning of March and we compete with that robot. And it's like tournament style competitions where you're using your robot collaboratively with other teams to try to score points and just show off what you guys learned.
Yeah, one of the big things that's really important to FIRST is being able to prepare people for the professional environment. Like, we get a lot of experience working with groups of people who we don't even know anything about them, because your team is paired up with another team going against 2 teams when you're in competition. And the whole big thing about FIRST is gracious professionalism, which teaches us that even though we're in a competition, we're going against each other, you should help the other people, you should be respectful to them. And you always want to stay gracious and kind.
And I guess to wrap that up, FIRST is kind of like a sporting is in it for the mind was like a really great way to put that. But really, like, the experience is is something that you won't forget. I was on a first team when I was my freshman year of high school. My teacher told me to join. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. But my sophomore year, I like kind of had no choice. And going to our first competition was just like super amazing. There are like teams from all over the place. You get to meet so many people. Um, the designs that people come up with are, everybody has basically the same criteria, and just the different designs that people come up with, the criteria, the things that they want to focus on, it just shows you, um, one, how creative you can be, and also like the different levels of thinking that you can have. Like, you don't have to just design it one way. And um and that's something we all talked about the other day, was how when you're there's so many different teams. They all have their own different style, and so you could go and there could be teams with just a banner, but then you have teams decked out with mascots and, just different colors, and people tend to give out little trinkets, and so, um, that's a really cool part about it. And I think that they touched on the gracious professionalism, because most people are super kind and like super willing to share things. Like, if you're building your robot and you're like, I need some pliers, you can just ask the person next to you, and they're like, oh yeah, like you can borrow these, just bring them back. And I think that's really cool to be able to like share that experience, to know that you're competing against someone, but also that they're there to help you. So
Kind of more on what you're saying, which is all exactly how I would explain it. But when you are at a robotics competition, you mentioned that nobody's robot is the same. Do any of you want to elaborate on why that is and how the game is kind of released to us?
Yeah, definitely. So it's kind of different for each level of robotics, but for FRC, like the high school level robotics, it's like the first weekend of January, it's the game reveal day. So we have the Powerhawks have, and a lot of teams have like a kickoff where the whole team gets together and they watch the game reveal video. So first at a certain time, it's all around the world, they put out this video and it kind of walks you through a nice animation of how the game works. And usually there's 2 to 3 different components that your robot has to use to score points. So one year it was taking gears and putting them on a peg, or like shooting cubes to level, like a seesaw type thing. And it's just all these different really creative ways that your robot has to figure out how to do. And you have to work with your team to figure out what you want to prioritize, what goals you want to accomplish. And they release a whole game manual that's like 500 pages thick, and the whole team has to read through it and figure out the best strategy. And there's a lot of different parts of that, and it's really cool to see how these different teams can get the same exact challenge and come up with vastly different solutions.
Yeah, a little bit more on that. I do FTC, which is kind of like early high school and late middle school more of. We have kickoff events too, where it's usually at like a community college or something, and they have different classes that you can take. So you can learn like programming, you can learn basic blocky programming, you can learn the basics of CAD and just kind of stuff, so that if you're a rookie team, that you have resources to help start you out instead of just going around blindly in the dark.
Absolutely. And I know one big thing about FIRST that I enjoyed as a student was that it wasn't just, obviously the competitions and building the robot is amazing, but it's also not for everybody. The building part isn't for everybody. So there's a lot of different ways that you can be involved on a FIRST robotics team, and everything down to business and organization and spirit. How would you all explain that for like your own personal experience on these teams?
So I would say for us, um, like Victoria's right, there's like a lot of different ways that you can be involved. For me, I had to learn CAD, and so I was that person. I didn't have like any like mentorship or anything. My teacher was like, you know what, just try it. You can figure it out. You're smart. And so I'm like, okay. So I was the one kind of putting things together, and I had a partner, and we like worked together to build the whole robot. But there are a lot of different things that we can do. So we had like some artsy people who, when I was there, we did buttons, and so they were actually making homemade buttons. We had to have programmers. Um, we had to have so when we're at competition, we kind of had that liaison person, the person who would go and ask teams for it stuff, or who would uh, just kind of chat with the teams that we would work with, just so we can figure out something off to start it. Yeah, it's just so many different things that you can do. And I know for them, they do a lot of outreach. So I'm pretty sure they probably have one person devoted to that, and being able to go out and talk to different companies to get fundraise and things like that. I know for my team specifically, we didn't really have a lot of people, and so a lot of the times we had people doing things as a group. And so when we tried to focus on outreach, we went as a group and was like, hey, please, like, we're a struggling team. And so I think that kind of helped us out. But yeah.
Yeah, so my team is actually fortunate enough to have a lot of members and a lot of resources. So we're broken up into two like divisions, business and build. And then under each of those divisions, we have like 2 to 3 to 4 even departments on each side. So for example, on our build side, we have programming, we have CAD or design, and we have fabrication. And then on our business side, we actually have a whole outreach sub-team, public relations, graphics, events, and finance. So we have a lot of people that we're able to evenly disperse over all of those different departments so we can accomplish our one goal. So I actually did not come into robotics on the technical side of things. My engineering teacher actually brought me in as a videographer because I was kind of like, oh, I don't know, like never built a robot before. I don't think I don't know how to do that. But with videography, it actually was the perfect position for me because it allowed me to actually get in the shop where I was kind of like afraid to go at first. And I had the excuse of hiding behind the camera, just checking out what they were doing. And I became so much more interested in all of the technical aspects of robotics because there's just so much that goes into building. We built a 125-pound robot in 6 weeks, and it's insane the amount of work that they do on it. So I became really interested in that, and I started getting in the shop a lot more without the camera this time. And then over the years, I actually got pulled up into a leadership position. So I've been fortunate enough to kind of have my foot in all of the pots, and now I'm the CEO of the team.
For my team, we are a lot smaller. We have about 10 people. So almost everybody on our team has to be a jack of all trades. As the founder of the team, I was kind of in charge of figuring out how to do everything first and then teaching everybody else how to do it. So I started off like doing programming, and then I was lead programmer for a year. And then I was just doing like outreach and organization, finance. And then this last year, I was mostly in charge of the engineering notebook, making sure that it was all up to par, and just kind of like overseeing everybody else and making sure that if they need help, you know, there's somebody who is a veteran who kind of knows how to help them, because we have a lot of new people who come onto our team every year. So it's important to have people who are like established and be like, yeah, you can do that. But there are so many different roles. Like there's design, there's social media, there's people who just sit around and come up with ideas for like, how can we reach out to our community? There are people who manage outreach over social media. There are the people who build, there are the building assistants, there are programmers and programming assistants, CADers. There's like any skill that you have, we could find a use for it in robotics. There's like, if you like to talk, we have scouters. That's one of the most important jobs. I mean, you know, anybody could be a robotics person through FIRST. It's not just for like nerdy types or smart types. Like anybody could do it.
I think like that's a great way to put it. I mean, one of the main things about FIRST and how amazing it is that, you know, there are opportunities for everybody in that situation. I have a question for you. As females on a robotics team, how did you kind of make sure that, you know, you got that role in the team and you took that initiative and you were heard the way you absolutely deserve to be in such a male-dominated field?
Yeah. Sorry.
You can go.
I think that's definitely difficult for everyone. And it was difficult for me kind of finding the confidence to pursue what I was passionate about and to learn something new. I was lucky to have a lot of mentors who supported me, but at the same time, there were people who did not want to listen. And some of the best advice I've ever had for making sure that your voice is heard is to become an expert. Robotics is great for furthering your education outside of the classroom, but there's other ways to do that too. I did a lot of research on my own. I did a lot of one-on-one work with mentors or senior leaders on the team just to learn as much as I could. And then by doing that, I started to get more recognition and like, oh, okay, she knows what she's talking about. She's like very invested in this. And I kind of force people to listen sometimes, but it was for the best, and just getting your ideas out there can really help you earn that respect.
I agree with Reyna. I think definitely knowing what you're talking about is a big thing with it, because it's one thing for people, if you're not established, they're going to be like, well, why would I listen to you? What's the point? But when you start talking and you show them, yes, this is what I do, this is my lifestyle, I know all about this, and I can walk circles around you. When you actually show them the results, then they'll be like, well, okay, I get it. I'll listen.
I would say when I was in first, I kind of was blessed because our team was mostly female, and so we all kind of was able to feed off of each other. But so I think that sort of gave me a strike of confidence. But I would say when I got to college, the roles were reversed. Being an engineering school, like a lot of you probably already know, it's like very male dominated. I think there were 7 girls in my class. And so going into that setting, it was sort of like Reyna said, sometimes you have to be the expert and like come to them and know, like, I know what I'm talking about, I know what I'm doing. But something I've also learned is that sometimes you have to just kind of let people fail, so to speak. And so I remember a time where we were working on a lab, and they was like, oh, well, how do we do it? And you're like, oh, okay, well, you can just do XYZ. And they're like, no, I don't think that's how you do it. I'm like, okay. And once they go through and they're like, well, that didn't work. And I'm like, well, maybe you should try this. And then they're like, oh, okay, well, let's try that. It's the last thing. And you're like, okay, it works. And so sometimes you have to, it's sad to say, sometimes you have to prove yourself and kind of let people know, like, I do know what I'm talking about. Like, I tried. But yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel that with, and I'm sure as Reyna and Ellie, you get into your courses in college, you'll see that like I'm one of 2 in one of my classes this semester for girls. And it's a little bit of a shock. It's a little intimidating when you first walk in, but like you said, it's all about being confident and just knowing what you know, and sometimes letting other people fail before they realize that you know a lot of stuff too. Kind of bouncing off of that, what are some of those things that you learned as a first robotics student that you now like take into what you're doing, either through internships or school or your job or whatever?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned through robotics is it's okay not to know. Like, it's great to be an expert and you want to do everything you can to learn and make yourself heard. But if you don't know, like, that's okay. We come in and we build these huge robots, and a lot of us start having no idea what we're doing. So you have to do what you can to learn what you don't know. So robotics gave me the opportunity to do a lot of networking with like mentors on my team and just people within the community. And that actually led to me first getting an internship at NASA Goddard. That's where I got this great advice about becoming an expert in your field and how to use that. And then from NASA, I met some wonderful women who told me about the Air Force and got me really interested in that. And so this year I've been offered an Air Force scholarship that I can take with me to Duke if I want it. And I've just talked to as many people as I can, because when it comes down to it, like, we're in high school, we're in college, like, we know a lot, but we still have a lot to learn. And there's a lot of people who have already been through that and who are willing to share their wealth of knowledge. So just talking to people and finding like job opportunities or internship opportunities. This year I've been working at the National Security Agency, and it's just a whole different side of engineering that I've been able to be exposed to there, which has been absolutely incredible. And it's all thanks to robotics, which is awesome.
So some of the things that I've learned from robotics is more on a different side. When I started robotics, I was very shy. I didn't really talk a lot. I was kind of like in the background, and I learned a lot about public speaking, about like being confident in what you're saying. I mean, I'm on a webinar right now that never would have happened 3 years ago. Team building, being able to work in a group with people you may not get along with or people who you don't know, I feel like those are going to come in handy a lot in the workplace where, it's very important that you have this kind of confidence and you know what you're doing, but you also know how to listen to everybody else's ideas and work together collectively. So I think those were some very important things. And as for internships, I'm too young for internships, but if anyone would like to seek me in, I'll be in Richmond. So.
I would say one of the things that first has taught me is patience, and to just kind of enjoy the process. And I think patience has definitely helped me actually in engineering school because, gosh, sometimes you work on a project and you can't figure it out, but you can't give it up. You can't give up because you have to. It's maybe it's due in a week or maybe you have a team that's dependent on you, and so taking that patience and being like, okay, let's start from the let's start from the drawing board. Uh, what do I know? What do I not know? What do I need to figure out? And then going on to be able to ask people questions and reach out to people and to try to troubleshoot what you've done has been like super important to me. So um, yeah, definitely patience and working through the problem.
Which are all incredible skills I have to learn as a first robotics student.
Yeah.
Kind of just like bouncing off of that before we get like to opening it up to questions. I had a question for you that I know I've kind of prepped you for, but as a female in STEM and just in general, we kind of take that backwards approach to like we can be really proud of something, but like we don't, go out there and say like, yeah, no, I did that all the time. And that's just, just taking that step back where you kind of are that more quiet person. So I want to know what's something you are really proud of yourself for doing, either in robotics or just in general in life.
So for those of you not familiar with FIRST, we have something called the Chairman's Award. And it's kind of like the most prestigious award in FIRST. It's based off of not only your team, but what your team does out in the community to further FIRST values. So my freshman year, as I said, I was involved in videography, and I spent so much time making our first chairman's video. So it doesn't weigh a lot into necessarily like actually giving out the award, but I had never used the program that we use for the video editing, and I spent so much time trying to make it the best I could do. And looking back on it, it was not a fantastic video, but we actually ended up winning our chairman's award that year. And just I remember seeing it like play on that huge screen, and like my whole team was so excited. They were all crying and they were all like so excited. They were all hugging, and like it was just a fantastic experience to be like recognized for something that you did.
And that's something that's an amazing award. So congratulations to you for putting that video together, because I know that's a lot of information that has to go into that, and just it's a long application process in general.
Yeah, now I'm actually presenting that award. Like I'm one of the chairman's presenters, so I get to memorize the script and go and talk to the judges. So come a long way, full circle.
That's amazing.
I would say for me, one of the things that I'm most proud of is one, just joining robotics. Like I was telling them previously, I did not want to do robotics. My math teacher was just like, hey, Jemesia, I need you to join the robotics team. And I was like, no, I think I got better things to do in my time. But previously I wanted to be a psychologist. So that was like all I was focusing on. I'm like, I just want to help people with their problems. And so joining the team, I just realized like I can help people in a whole new way. I don't have to actually physically sit and listen to their problems. Like I can just do things for them outside of that. And I think moreover, just actually going to engineering school, like at first kind of pushed me to that. Had I not joined robotics, I would not have been to engineering school. I would not thought that I was capable of it. And so actually being here and graduating soon, even though I won't get to actually walk because of COVID-19, will just be such a great experience for me. And like I've learned a lot. And I'm just sort of like proud of myself because I went through and I completed it. And I've overcome a lot of challenges that I've faced over the last 8 years, high school and college combined. Um, so yeah.
One of the first things that I did with my team that I was really proud of was my first year. I was the head programmer for the team. I had never programmed before in my life. I did not even know, like, I'd never thought I would be able to do that. I don't really consider myself more of like a technical person. And we actually completed a full autonomous, all in blocks, FTC blocks, and a lot of teams told us that that would be impossible, that we would have to learn written programming to do that year's challenges, and we did it in blocks, and I was the one who programmed it. And we were one of the very few teams at States that year who actually had a full autonomous. And then the next year, I was invited to go to the kickoff event and teach the FTC blocks program. And so having just learned the previous year all of my entire knowledge of Blocky, it was something really cool. I was like, well, I guess I must have been pretty good at it then.
That's really cool. That's a programming language I just don't even know. I don't do that part. That was never my job. So the fact that you learned it and became almost like a master of it in a year is really impressive.
Yeah, you learn a lot of fun little tricks, like I can make the robots talk, I can make them dance, and play music.
That's really cool. Kind of on that technology side of things, how does the technology that we see in FIRST Robotics compare to like that stuff that you're seeing out in the real world? And how are you able to kind of, and not just like phones or computers, but like in general, how are you like able to compare what you do to what you see around yourself each day?
So I think we kind of like downplay ourselves a little bit because like we're in high school and we're building these robots, but when you actually go out and you get internships and you go see what they're doing in the real world, it's very, very similar. Like I've had people on my programming team get internships at Johns Hopkins and actually like use the exact same skills that they were learning on robotics. I've seen it myself, and a lot of the stuff I've learned in the shop I can now use at work in my internship. And they're like, how did you learn this? And I was on robotics. And it's just kind of incredible to see how easily those skills transfer.
For me, I'm interested in like biotechnology and biomedicine, and obviously like technology is becoming increasingly a really big thing in there. And the fact that I'm like, okay, well, I know on a mechanical basis how these machines operate, and I know how they're programmed, and I've driven stuff like similar to them. I'm like, it gives you a better understanding of what it takes not only to build these machines, but also how they can be used even more in medicine, because when you're on robotics, you go through a lot of different ideas, a lot of different configurations. You learn how to use materials in ways that are very unconventional. And so that could even be like a bigger plus into how can we improve our current technology even further using the skills that we've learned.
And yeah, I agree kind of with both of those. And also, you realize like how simple things actually are. Um, Being in robotics, you have to build those things up. So when you do get out in the real world, you can like look at things. You're like, oh, that's this part, and that part. And so it helps you simplify things, and I think that's useful when you're trying to um, when you look at something, you're like, oh, this is super challenging, so super overwhelming. You're like, okay, wait, it's not that overwhelming, it's not that challenging. You've done similar things before. Like you can break it down and you can build it right back up.
Absolutely. I know the first time I saw, and it's probably one of the not simple, but one of the most like direct things in first, or and using it is like those pneumatic tubes. I was like, how do you even hook this up? And I was just excited because there were these colorful tubes that I got to play with, and pressurized air. But I had no idea what I was doing, and I know that I'm probably not the only one that had that interaction when I was first like put on this team, and I was like, I don't know what I'm touching. So how would you what was something in the robotics technology that you dealt with every day at first that you were like, when you first dealt with it, you were like, I don't know what's going on, but you eventually became that master outside of like the programming realm?
So we have a whole like design or CAD team on our team, and I know Jemesia has some experience with this too, but like walking in, I saw these people like doing computer modeling of like the robot that we were building in the shop simultaneously. I was like, that's so cool. So I was like, I have no idea how to do that. And then I remember we had one senior on the team who's like, come on, I'll show you. And then I just like shadowed him for a couple of weeks and like got to actually build some of the parts and like that we put into our engineering notebook that were of our robot. And I thought that was really cool. And it's a skill that is used a lot in the real world with a lot of different softwares. And it was really cool to learn through robotics.
Yeah, CAD is something that you'll be doing for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So I knew a little bit of CAD before I came into robotics, but I had never been like a mechanical type person. I was never like, the engineer child who would take things apart and put them back together. So I had no experience with hardware whatsoever. So, we basically had to learn how to build this robot from scratch. I did a lot of wiring. That was really cool. Different things like soldering things. A lot of hands-on things that I never would have thought I could even do. I learned how to do, and that was cool.
I actually agree with that because I was never the very hardware person either. I was so afraid. I think there was one year where we had to use a saw, and my teacher was like, "Just put it, attach to the desk and just do it." And I was like, "No, I can't. I don't know. I can't. I physically can't." Um, but after going through first, like I was able to. I'm not so afraid to use any power tools. It's still not my thing, but just simple things like that. It's just like, okay, it's not so bad. Like I can do it.
Absolutely. If anybody who is, part of this call now has any like questions for us, we are happy to answer. And I'm sure these ladies can put their insight into anything you have questions about. In the meantime, while those are coming in, just a quick question. You don't have to go too in depth, but what's your favorite first experience?
I know one right off the top of my head, so the others can have time to think. My team does team sleepovers before our competitions. Since we're kind of in a rural place and a lot of the competitions are in like Nova, we have like really, really long bus rides. So we have to get up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. anyways. So we just stay up all night and we have team sleepovers. And they are really, really fun. They are probably the most fun robotics thing anybody's ever done, just saying. But it really helps with the whole team building and the whole like family first type thing, because you get really, really close to people who you spend all of this hard time working with, staying up all night, riding on these 6-hour bus rides, when the sun's not even up. So.
Yeah, I would definitely say just competition was my favorite. Just the atmosphere. We describe it like a sport for the mind, but like it's just so different than any sporting event that you'll ever see, because yeah, you have what's going on the actual field, but then you have the stands, which are like just as hyped as a sporting event, but also like our pit area where there's like people just like running around fixing robots, networking with other teams, and it's just crazy. I know in the morning my team likes to get there like half an hour to even an hour early, and we stand outside the doors waiting for them to open, and one of our kids on our team has a speaker and we just like sing for like half an hour. Some of the teams don't like it because it's like 7 o'clock in the morning, but like we love it, and it's a great way to just get us all excited for the day, and I'm gonna miss it next year.
I have to agree. I will never forget my first experience at competition. So my school's in Richmond, so I was at the Siegel Center for competition, and just usually you go there for basketball, but to be there for robotics, it was just like super amazing to see all the teams with different setups, and um, just the variety, and like even like there was even a crowd, like not expecting a crowd, but there was even a crowd to watch it, and just screens. It was just such an amazing experience, and I will never forget that.
Yeah, I know. The Siegel Center, I know it's really cool to see it as a competition versus, a basketball game. And you're like, is this the same universe? Because
Right.
they seem totally different. We did have a question in the chat, and I'll read it to you. And if one of you or all of you want to put your 2 cents in. And it was, how do you get into FIRST? And what age groups are involved? Also, how did you hear about FIRST? And have you partnered with anyone to promote other individuals to join?
So first, like they were saying previously, there are a number of age groups. So they have like Lego League, you have Tech Challenge, and then FRC. So I think the lowest it can is 3rd grade. You have to be like 8 or 9. My little brother I was actually trying to get my little brother into Lego League because he likes to build things. So I'm like, Mom, this is a great way to get him started. You can build another engineer. So there are a variety of ways, and not really sure where you are specifically, but there are a lot of different organizations that'll have Lego League programs, and so you could probably just reach out or check the FIRST website. I'm sure they probably have a listing of where all the different organizations are. How I heard about FIRST, and so when I was in 8th grade, I was in a Math Science Innovation Center, and it was like this summer program. And my math teacher was there, and they had like a robotics class there. And it was fun. It was like building little stuff like making a spider that can light up and walk, stuff like that. So it's sort of like an intro to engineering. And that my math teacher, he was like, hey, you can you like this? I'm like, oh, it's fine, it's cool. And he's like, well, you should, join our robotics team. And I'm like, nope. And so went through 9th grade, and he was still like, like, just come check it out. Just come see what we're doing. And I came, I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. But they were building the chassis, so there was like a lot of hardware stuff, and I was like, I can't do that. So I sort of skipped out on it, but then my sophomore year, I was like, okay, I'm gonna come, but I can't use a saw. So please put me on something else.
Yeah, what Jemesia said, firstandfive.org is a great way to find teams in your areas. I personally got involved through schools, but there's a lot of teams who have like community teams, so like you don't necessarily need to go to that school. But it's also not so difficult to start your own team. I'm sure Ellie could talk about that, but especially at the younger levels, if you just have a group of passionate kids and like 1 or 2 mentors that are willing to help those kids out and just coordinate things for them, you can definitely start your own.
Yeah, so there are a lot of age groups that FIRST can go through, since we have like FIRST Lego League Junior, which is elementary schoolers, and then FLL through FRC. High school can actually be FTC or FRC depending on your budget, because FRC is a lot more expensive to get into than FTC is. But I heard about it, well, I actually sought it out because I decided that my new hobby was going to be robot building. And so I looked for a robotics program that I could start at my school, and I saw FIRST, and I thought that it would be fairly easy to start, and then it would be easy to maintain, and it could bring a lot of different people in to it. So we do a lot of outreach. We basically, like how my team starts teams in our area, because we didn't really have any at all near us. And so we started our team, and then we talked to the middle school, and we were like, you guys should start a Lego team. Kids love Legos. It'll teach them valuable skills for their future life. And so we got a team at the middle school. We have a community team that we started because there are homeschool kids that we said, like, it's a lot through like word of mouth, where we talk to our friends and then they talk to their friends, and then we had all these kids who were like, well, we're homeschooled but we want to do robotics, and we're like, that's fine, we've got you. And we have other, like, we go around to the other schools and surrounding counties and we're like, this is our robotics team, these are all of our robots, they're really cool, do you guys want to do it? And then if they're like, yeah, we want to do it, then we are like, okay, we have all of these resources and we're going to, like, people do their is a really great way to come up with it. Also, on the first website, they have a list of all of the events around you, so you could actually go to a robotics competition, and any of the teams there would probably be over eager to help you start one in your area if you don't have one.
I think that's a great way to put it. There's a lot of resources out there for robotics, and it is firstinspires.org that you can go to and like search for teams in your area. Another question was, talk about some of your failures in robotics and how it's prepared you for other aspects in life or school.
That's a great question. So this past year, I can talk about that. We kind of set our goals a little too high. We, for some reason, decided that we wanted to make 3 robots this year. Like, one in our preseason, a practice robot, and then our actual competition robot. We were not able to meet that goal. We had a lot of failures in our prototyping process, and just even with our competition robot, our first competition, we were lucky enough to go to one this year. And it was hard. It was just not working the way that we had planned it out. But it's really taught me a lot about teamwork and relying on your team to overcome those challenges that you see. We built a big portion of one of our mechanisms the night before competition in the pit at the competition location, and ended up competing with it the next day, and that was great. But it's also taught me a lot about communicating with people. We've run into some issues with students and even with mentors not working together as they should. And in a leadership position, it's kind of sometimes hard to facilitate that a lot of times too, like when it's with your mentors that you're having the issues. But it's just really taught me a lot about proper communication and respect and putting the team first, the whole, before just yourself, and just trying to make everyone be heard.
Yeah, I think at the core of robotics and pretty much STEM in general, it's all about failure, because everything that you do during your season, you're going to build your robot, something's going to break, screws are going to come loose, maybe your wheel comes off in the middle of a competition, maybe your phones disconnect and your robot is bricked on the field, maybe you miss one line of programming, you miss a semicolon, or your blocks don't work, and your perfect, beautiful 100-point autonomous suddenly runs into another robot and gets you a huge penalty. And this happens in finals matches, in the whole midst of competition, very intense. And something can go wrong at any moment because robots have a mind of their own a lot of the time. There are so many things that can go wrong, but the biggest thing that it teaches you is you learn to roll with the punches. And you learn that it's okay to fail 100 times and then get it right, because the results are what matters. And a lot of people don't see all of the hard work, all of the failing, all of the we don't know what we're doing that goes behind these awesome robots, but there is so much of it.
There's a lot, and there's a lot just in general in the STEM field, I think, which is, you put it beautifully, but you do fail a lot in either classes or just like in your learning and understanding of these hard concepts, because they're hard concepts. That's why engineering is hard. And so, when you finally do get it and you get that aha moment, it really is amazing. And that's the result that really matters in the long run. Jemesia, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I guess so. Outside of like patience, one thing I also learned being in competition, my team was, and I was on our robotics team, we were a relatively new team, and young and inexperienced. And one of the competitions we were a part of, our robot actually did pretty good. Like it was consistent, it scored, and it actually even did better than some of the other competitions. But one thing we learned is that there are a lot of schools who've been in it a long time, and when it's time to pick partners, for those further competitions, you realize like sometimes you won't get chosen, even if you are good at it. And so that just reminded us as a team that going forward, like, you know, we can do one thing really good, but sometimes you have to work a little bit harder to get people to notice you. Sometimes you have to do something slightly different for people to see that your robot is just as good as the next man's. And also that goes for more, that requires sometimes more reaching out to people, more talking to them about how your robot, how you can work together. And so kind of being able to build sort of a system with other people. And so I think that for me has built a lot of patience, but also just helped me recognize that a lot of it is communication, a lot of it is talking to people and like making sure that you have that connection with them. Because even in the real world now, life is about networking, and so it's all about who you know. And so being able to take that loss, or whatever you want to call it, the obstacle, and be able to, okay, next time I'm going to go talk to every team and come up with a strategy for all of us. Is really helpful, because you never know, like one of them might win, or maybe you win, and now you have people to kind of help you move forward.
Sorry, my dog is barking in the background. I had a question for you. Or that they had a question for you. Sorry. Kelly asked, what specific internships and scholarships are available for females in STEM in your areas?
There's actually a lot more than you think. I know Ellie and I were actually recent winners of the first Women in STEM scholarship that was sponsored by Rolls-Royce and Dominion Energy this year. So FIRST has a whole page for scholarships if you're involved in FIRST, and I think it's something like $80 million or something worth of scholarships through FIRST itself and a lot of private sponsors and universities. So those are for anyone involved in FIRST, and specifically females, like the ones that Ellie and I got. Internships too, like I've done an internship at NASA and the NSA. We get those confused sometimes because they're kind of similar. But really, just if you go for it, if you are willing to put yourself out there and just like apply for scholarships. I've gotten a lot of scholarships recently, and it just takes a matter of just like applying, just writing essays, just talking to whoever you can, getting letters of recommendation, and just keep putting yourself out there. My mom and I like to call it, we just throw whatever we can against the wall and we see what sticks. And if you keep doing that, eventually there's going to be a lot that sticks.
Yeah, on that, there are definitely a lot of scholarships available for FIRST students. They have stuff through like the Dean's List, and that can get you a lot. That looks really good on resumes. But the scholarships are more for people who want to go into engineering, because I've looked at a lot of them as somebody who is in FIRST but wants to go into medicine. If you're looking for like that side of it, there's not as many scholarships because they don't really consider it a part of STEM. So you do have to consider that. But for internships and stuff, FIRST is really good for providing a lot of networking opportunities. You meet a lot of different people at the competitions. You meet a lot of different people through other people's mentors. You meet them through doing things like this or going to scholarship breakfasts, and you just make connections that everywhere you go, and you get really good at networking because that's one of the core skills that they basically teach you. Sorry, that's my cat. One of the core things that they teach you through scouting. So there's a lot of valuable skills and valuable things that you can get through FIRST.
And I would say just outside of FIRST, just kind of like look into your community. I'm not really sure where you're from, but in Richmond, they have like a whole, I know sometimes they have like scholarship fairs where you can just go to, and they'll just have like a list. But one thing that Reyna touched on is that you have to just be diligent. Like you have to just keep applying, and you might have to apply to like 100. And you might not get all 100. You probably won't get all 100. You'll probably only get like 2. But those 2 make a difference. And so just being patient and just applying to anything that you like, you fit the criteria. If you're like left-handed, cool, talk about that. If you have a dog, do that. If your parents are in the military, write about that. Like, there are scholarships everywhere for everyone, and there are like a number of even just general websites you can go to. I know in Virginia, sometimes in like October.
I think she froze. I think she had some really great advice, but I do not know what happened to her audio. But I know something just from another perspective is that STEM is a hot topic right now, and so is women in STEM. And so there are scholarships out there. Even just Google women in STEM scholarships, and you might be able to find something. I think that's all we have time for today. This was really fun. Thank you everybody for being here, and thank you Ellie, Jemesia, and Reyna for speaking and sharing your wisdom. It was so much fun to talk to you.